Welcome to part 2. Let's dive in. In part 1, we saw that the book of Revelation was a message about Jesus given to John, given to the 7 churches in Asia Minor, who were getting hammered through the devil, through the hand of his agency, that is the Roman Empire. And they're getting hammered and they're wondering why. So God gives this vision. So, hey guys, you guys on earth are getting hammered. You are caught in a cosmic battle between good and evil, and the devil is hammering you on planet Earth. It's not him. As we move into chapter 4 now, he moves into a vision concerning the future of God's people. And he says, look guys, the crisis you had on earth is a microcosm of the crisis that's going on in the spiritual realm. So let's move into chapter 4, into the symbolic visionary section. Chapter 4, verses 1 and 2, we move from earth and cosmic war on earth with a cosmic battle and crisis in heaven. We're all in this together. Chapter 4, verses 1 and 2, English Standard Version. The throne appears. After this, I looked and behold, a door standing open in heaven. And the first voice, which I heard speaking to me like a trumpet, said, come up here, and I will show you what must take place after this. He just described crisis on earth through the devil onto the church. And now he's saying, come up here, and I'm going to show you from the heavenly perspective what's going to happen in the future after this. And what's the first thing he sees? Verse 2. At once I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne stood in heaven, and one seated on the throne. The future is focused and centered on the throne. God is ruling in the middle of all this mess you're going through on planet Earth. The word throne will appear many times in this chapter, and in fact, right throughout the whole book of Revelation, you'll see it come up again and again and again in this series. Because what kind of God do we have ruling on a throne in heaven where his people are getting hammered on earth? That's the question. If God is good and powerful, then please make sense of us dying for him. So it takes you to the throne of God, to the rule of God, and there's only one seated on the throne. Chapter 4 and 5 now will describe one unfolding vision of heavenly worship before the throne. And there are 5 scenes through this one worship scene in heaven. And you're going to find that this worship scene in chapter 4, where everything seems to be peaceful and great, gets interrupted in chapter 5. There's a crisis concerning the rulership of the one seated on the throne. There's a crisis in heaven. We are going to camp in chapter 4, 5, and 12 because they all belong together. Once we understand the opening vision about the future, the 7 seals, trumpets, and plagues are going to make sense. So we're going to camp here for a while, and we're going to dig into the storyline in this worship scene, because you're going to see that the seals, trumpets, and plagues all relate to God's rule on the throne. Let's dive in. So he's taken up into heaven. He's going to be shown the future. And the first thing he sees is the throne. Throne is rulership. God's rulership now comes into focus. And what's the first thing he sees about God's throne and rulership? 4:3 English Standard Version. And he who sat there, the one on the throne, and he who sat there had the appearance of jasper and carnelian. And around the throne, here we go, around his rulership, was a rainbow. Wow. The first thing, as John is shown the future, in connection with the 7 churches being persecuted and killed by the Romans. God is on his throne, and his throne, his rule in the middle of this earthly crisis is surrounded by a rainbow. We all know what rainbow means. The first time it appears in the Bible, it's connected with the flood, Noah's flood. And a rainbow appeared in the sky, and God says, this is a covenant of peace and non-violence, which is what it means today. God's throne is surrounded by the covenant of peace and non-violence. God rules under the banner of peace. Our God is a non-violent God, and he will rule from the presence of non-violence that surrounds him and peace. And because God is not violent, he will not intervene on planet Earth with acts of violence in this cosmic war. And Satan knows, and we will see, that God is a pacifist God who will not rule through a show of force. That is Satan. And that's why evil and violence breaks out on earth, because God will do things justly on his throne from the platform of non-violence, non-peace, and peace, So worship scene breaks out in heaven in verse 4. They are worshipping a God who rules on the basis of non-violence. 4:4, English Standard Version. Around the throne, first we saw there was peace, a rainbow, and now around the throne were 24 thrones. Stop. Wow. There's not just one throne in heaven, there's another 24. What does this tell us about the rule of God, of the one who sits on the throne, covered in a rainbow of peace and non-violence? God is not a dictator. God is not a tyrant. Around the throne were 24 thrones, and seated on the thrones were 24 elders, clothed in white garments, with golden crowns on their heads. God will share his rule. This will be in direct contrast to Satan in the book of Revelation, who wants to take the throne of God, but he will not share his rule. He will not do it under a rainbow. He will do it through violence. He will not share. He will be an autocrat. Chapter 4 and chapter 5 are going to set the scene for the cosmic war. God is a peaceful God who rules from the platform of peace and non-violence, and he shares his rule. And the devil will be described exactly the opposite. And let me tell you straight, it's because God is not a dictator, he's not a tyrant, he's a peaceful God, he's not a violent God, that we will see that when we get to the seals, that those who have died for Jesus now talk to God and say, God, what are you doing? We're getting killed here. What are you doing? He rules from the premise of the rainbow, and he shares his power. He will not show force. Satan does. He's the one dumping seals, plagues, and trumpets onto you. Not me. But wait. The way I rule, things are going to turn out okay. We saw in the last one. Be faithful unto death. You're going to die. It won't be me that does it. The devil's doing it. And I'll give you the crown of life. It's going to end up okay. Trust me. I'm doing it from the premise. I'm dealing with evil and violence from the premise of peace and non-violence. Wait and watch the story play out. And this is what the book of Revelation is all about. So here we've got a peaceful scene of worship from 24 elders who are sharing the rule of God. And then the scene changes. Others come in and they join the worship scene, and the story will now begin to heat up and unfold about this cosmic war and God's rulership and what God does and doesn't do in this war. God bless you.